Before Russia became steeped in communism, and before the start and end of the Cold War with the United States, it was an empire ruled by czars or emperors. The power the czars held was considered a God-given right and was passed down through the royal family for almost 300 years. But this all ended with the rule of Nicholas II. The honor-winning book, The Family Romanov, Murder, Rebellion, and the Fall of Imperial Russia by Fleming tells the story of the last Tsar and his family during a time of rebellion in Russia. Most of this book reads as a biography of the family, going as far back as Nicholas as a gentle and sheltered boy, traits that would make him loathe taking the role of an emperor and would later make his people doubt him. It goes on to describe how in love with his wife Alexandra he was, and how dependent he became on her to help him make decisions. Following tradition, they hoped for a son as an heir and fell into superstitious behaviors when they had 3 daughters before finally having a son. These are the family members who would suffer together through difficult times as the empire fell around them. The book does not only focus on the family, though. Threaded throughout are glimpses of what everyday life was like for the poor citizens of Russia. For example, from one traveler's autobiography, a vision of Russia is painted.
The courtyard had an acrid stench, and throughout were dirty puddles of water and discarded vegetables. In the apartments and all around, people were crowding, making noise, yelling, cursing. Our workday at the factory lasted 11.5 hours. In the beginning, I would grow terribly tired, so as soon as I got home from work, I would fall into my filthy, hard, straw-filled sack and sleep like a dead man, despite the bedbugs and fleas.
The book uses clever and helpful headings all throughout. The excerpt that was just read was from a section called Beyond the Palace Gates, Peasant Turned Worker. Even the cover of the book suggests a dynamic that is accurately presented throughout. The lives of the Romanov family while most of Russia suffers under terrible conditions. It does a great job of contrasting these two lifestyles. The length and detail of this book, both expository and narrative, allow the reader to understand the complicated political structure of Russia that led to its breaking point, as well as sympathize with the imperial family in moments painted from their diary entries. Conditions for lower-class citizens had been tearing at their morale for years, but the book explains some major events and factors that finally pushed them into all-out rebellion. Many peasants thought that the Tsar would agree to making changes once he knew how badly his people were suffering, that it was not his fault he lived so close to heaven. This viewpoint changed, however, after January 22nd, 1905, in what became known as Bloody Sunday. Peaceful protesters were marching up to the Winter Palace where Nicholas was supposed to reside. Instead of receiving the protesters, Nicholas ordered for his soldiers to shoot, and about 200 people were killed. After this, Nicholas was pressured into concessions to keep the peace. He reluctantly agreed to the establishment of a Duma, or an assembly of citizens from different social classes, to have a voice in the Tsar's decision-making. Now, citizens were supposed to be allowed to protest freely, political prisoners were released, and revolutionaries took voice. One revolutionary to return to Russia, back from hiding, was a man known as Vladimir Lenin, a strong leader and supporter of Marxism, a kind of socialism. Lenin would end up having incredible power over the fate of Russia, as well as the fate of the Romanovs once they were overthrown. Another factor in the rebellion was the start of World War I. When Germany declared war on Russia, hundreds of thousands of peasants were sent to fight battles, ill-equipped with food, weapons, and protective clothing. This angered the Russian people close to breaking point. Published in 2014, this is an excellently researched book that is sure to appeal to 8th grade readers as well as strong 7th grade readers. Since it has been published so recently, it includes discoveries from as late as 2007 in DNA testing on the remains of the Romanov family to help the reader understand their doomed fate. It also would be an excellent book to pair with historical fiction novels like Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys and Secret by Lindsay Smith. Additionally, the author paints an intimate portrayal of how communism came to Russia and sets up readers to be able to tackle George Orwell's classical allegory Animal Farm.